Hi everyone, welcome to CodeTav Management. So today we will discuss mainly about the profile annotations. While we will use the profile annotation, how we will configure those things, and why we will use those, what things we can manage with the help of profile. So those things mainly we will discuss. Okay, so just think managing different configurations like for local staging and production environment, it's too much complicated when we will use only one property file, right? So if you will think any system, like when we will switch between local to some UAT environment or some QA environment, then some production environment, then if we will use separate files and we will handle those, okay, that will be more easy, right? Suppose when we will use in UAT, then we will need to change in UAT, then we will use those UAT properties, right? If we will use those QA environment, then the Q specific properties we need to use. We will mention just QA, then it will pick the properties of QA. Okay, like this actually I'm talking about. So hard coding the database URLs or API keys is a recipe for disaster when moving code between environments if you will not do that. So here I will completely guide like how to handle those environment specific configurations using property files and the profile annotation. Okay, but first of all, just learn like how the Spring Boot naming convention is. So Spring Boot has a built-in feature to automatically load the configuration files, and how it will be based on the active profile. So the naming convention is like the application hyphen profile name dot properties or your YAML. So you will keep your base application dot properties for the default settings and then create the separate files for each environment. So in each environments, like first of all we need to prepare the default properties. So for the default properties, we will use the application.properties file. So here we will mention suppose the spring.application name of our application. So I have kept it as my awesome app for now. And here I have set spring profiles.active is local. Next, I have told you like this file holds the properties that are true for all the environments or sets the default active profile for your local machine. So you don't have to specify it every time you run the app in your IDE. Okay. Now the local environment. So for the local environment name specific, you have seen I have specified that application hyphen profile name dot properties. So that's why for local application hyphen local dot properties file I have created. So all the local related properties I have kept. So app service URL is HTTP localhost, then port is 8080 by default, and username, password, what is the connection timeout, then throttle limit, retry count, all I have mentioned here, correct, in this application local dot properties. Now for the stage one, I have created application stage dot properties. If you want to prepare for QA in different, so you can prepare in the same way application hyphen QA dot properties. So here also specify, you need to specify the proper service URL. Okay, what is your API URL? Okay, so according to that you will mention here. Okay, next for production also I have created the application hyphen prod dot properties. Now we have prepared those things. Now we have to access those variables through our Java code, right? So that is our step two. So while you could use the value annotation, like the value, then Under that, you can use the app service URL for every single variable. That gets messy quickly, right? Like in our earlier video, I have told you how you will use the value annotations. But if you will use the value annotations for every single variable, then suppose you need to specify every time like that at the rate value, and then inside that, suppose that dollar uh, app dot this name actually app dot service dot URL, app dot service dot URL. Okay, now you need to close this one. So at as this is the dynamic, I will put this in this second bracket. Okay, now it is end, then first bracket, done. So every time you need to mention that. That is very meshy. And the best practice for grouping related properties is using the configuration properties. Okay, so that's why I have used here configuration properties, you can see. Okay, so if we will use this configuration dot properties, then inside that in prefix I have mentioned that app dot service. Okay, so now Spring will automatically inject the correct values from the active profiles property file into the configuration bin. Okay, so that's why it's the best practice for grouping related properties. Okay, now uh, using the profile to restrict bin creation. So sometimes changing the variables is not enough. So you might need to swap out an entire implementation class based on the environment, like sending real emails in production, but just logging them to the console in local. Okay, so this is where the profile annotation signs. So it tells the Spring like only create this bin if this specific profile is active, right? So suppose this notification service is not required for our local, but it is required for our suppose staging and suppose in prod. So at that time only we will activate the notification service. Okay, so suppose we have created this interface, this notification service, send notification method inside that, and we are passing the message. Now the local implementation, see, when I am specifying under this service annotation the profile as the local, then uh, inside this send notification, I am just printing this local log only would have sent the message. Okay, then in our console we will just match that is properly working or not. So by using this profile local, this class is only instantiated when the local profile is active. Now for the production or stage implementation, you can specify multiple profiles. Like I have mentioned the inside this profile under this second bracket multiple like stage comma prod. Okay, or are otherwise if you know that it's only not required in local but in other environments it will be, then you can use this one also like at the rate profile, then inside this double quote not local means without local environment any other for other environment it will work. But suppose you want like for local and UAT environment, it will not require, and for other environment like QA and prod, it will require. Then you can specify like this only, like inside that profile, you can specify the QA comma prod. According to your choice, you can use. Okay. Through that, basically, here as I have mentioned the stage and prod, so it will be activated in both stage and prod. Now, this real AWS notification service now implementing this notification service, and here I have here the app service config is also there, and here I have printing that connecting to that config dot get URL. Like from this app service config, I will get the URL with some timeout, and we'll get the connection timeout, and we will finally sending the real notification to AWS. Okay. So that's the difference. So when this is local, we have this one local mock notification service implements this, and when stage and prod, the real AWS notification service we are implementing. Okay. Now, how to switch profiles when running the app? So you have the files and the code, but how do you tell Spring which environment it is currently in? So we have the things like, if you are running it on in your local, then then you already set the Spring dot profiles dot active equals to local in your base application properties. Here you can see, right? So it is the it's okay, like your local will be activated, no issue. Now, as a command line argument usually used in CI/CD pipelines when you do via in a cloud or something. So when you build your jar file, okay, and run it on your staging server, then you pass the profile flag like the java-jar my-app.jar Spring profiles active. Then there you need to mention what specific environment you want to add. So stage or QA or prod, you can add anything. Okay. Now I'm talking about as an environment variable based for like Docker or Kubernetes. So servers map the property to uppercase with the underscore. So export like Spring underscore profiles underscore active equals to prod. When we will mention, it will be activated. So then actually our jar file also will mention. So Spring Boot will be detected the prod and load the application properties, immediately override it with application prod properties, then instantiate the app service config with the production limits, and it will ignore the local mock notification service and load the real this real AWS notification service. Okay. Again, I will repeat like how this will work. Okay, again, I'm telling. So, Spring Boot, like when you will specify this, suppose this export Spring profiles active, right? So, servers will map the property to uppercase, okay, with the underscore. Clear up to that part. Then Spring Boot will detect this prod, as here you have mentioned the prod, so it will understand that. Then it will actually load application.properties, and it is the default one. Okay. Then after that, it will immediately override it with the application hyphen prod.properties file, as you have mentioned this. Now instantiate the app service config with the production limits. This one, like, yeah. So app service config, yeah, this one with the production limit. It will instantiate. Okay. Now as it will instantiate, so that's why it will ignore this local mock notification service, and it will uh, load the real AWS notification service. Inside that only you are passing that config as well. Okay. So in this way, the it will load the real AWS notification service, and it will able to send the real notification to AWS. Okay. In this way it will work. So that's all for today. Again, we will meet in the next lecture. So till then, stay tuned and do like, share, and subscribe for motivating me. Okay. Bye.